In the ancient hills of Judea, where the olive trees stood as silent witnesses to the passage of time, there lived a woman whose name was spoken with admiration and reverence by all who knew her story. Her name was Abigail, and she was known not just for her beauty, but for her wisdom. A wisdom that would one day save many lives and alter the course of history. Abigail was born into a family of wealth and influence. Her father, a respected elder in the tribe. From a young age, she was recognized for her intelligence and kindness. Her mother taught her the ways of hospitality, the importance of managing a household with grace and wisdom. Abigail grew up listening to the stories of the elders, learning from their experiences, and absorbing the lessons of the past. She had a keen mind and a compassionate heart, traits that would serve her well in the years to come. As she reached adulthood, Abigail's beauty became the talk of the town. Many men sought her hand, but it was Nabal, a wealthy man from Maon, who won her. Or rather, her family arranged the marriage, seeing in Nabal's vast herds of sheep and goats a secure future for their daughter. But Nabal was not like Abigail. He was a man of great wealth, but with a heart as hard as the stones that lined the Judean hills. His reputation was one of arrogance, cruelty, and folly, traits that made him feared but never loved. Nabal was the son of a once noble family, but years of prosperity had turned his heart cold. As a young man, his hunger for wealth drove him to amass riches, but his success only fueled his arrogance. A man is measured by his possessions, he often said, dismissing any notion of kindness or humility. His servants knew him to be a harsh master, quick to anger and slow to forgive. They whispered of his drunken rages and his disdain for those he considered beneath him. In contrast, Abigail, with her gentle spirit and wise counsel, tried to bring peace to their household. But Nabal's heart was as immovable as the mountains. One day, during the season of sheep shearing, a time of celebration and abundance, David, the anointed but not yet crowned king of Israel, was wandering the wilderness with his band of loyal followers. David, who was on the run from the wrath of King Saul, had been protecting Nabal's shepherds and flocks in the wilderness, ensuring that no harm came to them. It was customary for those who provided such protection to be compensated during the shearing festival, and so David sent his men to Nabal with a polite request. "Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have," David's messengers said as they stood before Nabal. "We have been watching over your shepherds and your flocks, and not a single one of your sheep has been lost. Now, please give whatever you can spare to your servants and to your son David." Nabal's face twisted in a sneer as he listened. "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse?" He spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Should I take my bread and water, and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers, and give it to men coming from who knows where?" The messengers, stunned by Nabal's harsh words, returned to David and recounted the insult. David's eyes darkened with anger. "Every man strap on his sword," he commanded, his voice like thunder. "By morning, not one male in Nabal's household will be left alive." As David and his men prepared for battle, one of Nabal's servants, a young man who had seen the folly of his master and the wisdom of Abigail, ran to her with haste. "My lady, disaster is upon us," he cried, breathless. "David, who has done nothing but good for us, sent messengers to our master, and Nabal insulted them." They are coming to destroy us, and I fear nothing will stop them." Abigail's heart pounded in her chest, but she did not allow fear to paralyze her. "Quickly," she ordered, her voice steady. "Gather 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, and 5 seahs of roasted grain. Bring 100 clusters of raisins and 200 cakes of figs. We must go to David at once." As her servants prepared the provisions, Abigail saddled her donkey, her mind racing with the weight of what lay ahead. She knew that Nabal's foolishness had placed their entire household in jeopardy, and it was up to her to prevent a massacre. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Abigail set out to meet David, her heart heavy with the responsibility she bore. When she saw David and his men approaching, their swords gleaming in the fading light, Abigail dismounted quickly and threw herself at David's feet. "My lord," she began, her voice calm but urgent, "let the blame be on me alone. Please, let your servant speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." David's eyes softened as he looked down at the woman before him. "Speak," he said, his voice no longer filled with the anger that had driven him to march against Nabal. "Please, my lord, pay no attention to that wicked man Nabal. He is just as his name means. Fool and folly follows him wherever he goes. But I, your servant, did not see the men my master sent," Abigail said, her voice pleading but dignified. "Now, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, may your enemies and all who intend to harm you be like Nabal. Let this gift, which your servant has brought to you, be given to the men who follow you." David's anger dissipated as he listened to Abigail's wise words. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands." Abigail's relief was palpable as David accepted her gifts and sent her home in peace. But the ordeal was not over. When Abigail returned to Nabal, she found him holding a feast fit for a king, completely unaware of the disaster that had been averted. He was drunk, his face flushed, and his speech slurred. Abigail knew that this was not the time to speak of what had happened, so she waited until the next morning, when Nabal had sobered. As the first light of dawn filtered through the windows, Abigail approached Nabal, her voice calm but firm. "My lord, there is something you must know," she said, recounting the events of the previous day. As she spoke, Nabal's face grew pale, his heart failing him as the weight of his folly became clear. Within days, Nabal was dead, struck down by the Lord. Word of Nabal's death reached David, who recognized in Abigail a woman of unmatched wisdom and courage. He sent for her, and she became his wife, not as a mere possession, but as a partner. Her strength and intelligence valued and respected. Abigail's story is one of courage, wisdom, and grace under pressure. Despite being married to a man who was the very embodiment of folly, she rose above her circumstances, becoming a symbol of strength and righteousness. Her legacy is a reminder that true power lies not in wealth or position, but in the ability to act with integrity, compassion, and wisdom in the face of adversity.